What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The name of the show is Politics on My Mind, and I'm the host, Troy Griffith. Let's get the show started. It's going to be a good one.
All of you know who I am.
What's poppin', ladies and gentlemen? You're tuned into Politics on My Mind. I am the host, Troy Griffith. This is episode 188. If you would like to listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, you can do so on SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, iTunes. Just go into that search bar, type in Politics on My Mind, hit that subscribe button. If you would like to follow the podcast on Twitter, you can do so at POMM Podcast. And once again, that's on the Bluebird Twitter. Today is Monday, November 9th, 2020, and I would like to welcome you to the only podcast for the hip-hop generation. As always, I have to tell you about the website, politicsonmymind.com. Go check the website out, politicsonmymind.com. New episodes, so on and so forth. Also, you can get the audio version of the podcast on YouTube. Still trying to figure that out in the sense of like I post it, you know what I mean, like after, because using GarageBand, it takes like 3 hours for it to convert into an MP4. So I could put it on, using iMovies, it takes like 4 hours to convert. I'm not kidding. It literally takes 4 hours. It takes 4 hours to convert to an MP4 so I could put it on YouTube. But how I can solve all of that is just doing the YouTube video. I'm not there yet, yo. It's like, I don't know, like that social media world. What's his name, man? Busta Rhymes explained it perfectly. And I just jumped into the episode. Like, what's poppin', y'all? My bad. What's poppin'? I appreciate you tuning in. All that good stuff. Can I play around a little bit before we get into the good stuff? I know. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the election. I know. I'm just as excited as y'all. I ain't gonna front, but let me just get into it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so check this out. So the whole social media thing is super hard for me, right? Because I feel like it's a whole world that exists that people just try to get famous, and I'm not trying to be famous, right? That's not my plan. I do this political thing. I listen to rap, and I do all of it because of a passion. I don't really care about, you know what I mean, like being famous on the internet, like, so it's really hard for me to get into it because I just be on some shit like, you know what I mean? It's like school. I just want to dip in, do my work, and be out. You know what I mean? It's like, my job. I just want to dip in, do my work, and be out. That's just how I move. But I was listening to Drink Champs, right, with Noriega, the real Noriega, right? Noriega from Capone Noriega and DJ EFN. I was watching it, one of the podcasts that, one of the episodes that Busta Rhymes did. And he said something in there that is, I try to like let people know like the environment I'm from, picture taking, social media, this whole world that exists to you. When you grew up in a certain environment, it's not conducive to your lifestyle, right? So tell you what, I sent it to one of my homies, and because her and she's always like, yo, you never want to take pictures. I'm like, because it's not a thing that I grew up doing, just a camera flashing at you all the time, right? So I ended up recording that piece of that interview and sending it to her. So I did not plan to do this at all. Don't think I planned to. I just remembered that I had it in here. But I'll play the part where Busta Rhymes talks about just taking pictures. Here goes.
The reason why it's an issue for me, I think a lot of us can agree that come from the 90s.
Right.
I'm still a Reaganomics era child, right?
So a lot of crack.
I mean,
He doesn't automatic. That's what it means.
it does mean that.
That's what it means.
And because of what we was doing, two things: you wasn't allowed to talk about it because it was self-incriminating,
And you avoided the cameras.
and number two, task force and D's and feds was coming around filming you without your permission to get intel against you to build a case. Why the fuck would I be comfortable with a motherfucker just randomly filming me, especially now when the police look like the niggas you hang out with?
Right.
See, at least the police back then ain't look nothing like the niggas we hung out with. Now these niggas got tattoos, throwing up gang signs and the whole shit.
They former gang members in some cases.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Fake blunts and everything.
These niggas is gang members and the whole shit.
So look, remember the part where he said they're gang members and all that shit, right? So remember that for a little bit later in the episode. And to be honest with you, I didn't even remember that end part that he said that I was so focused on the taking pictures thing. So look, if you want to go watch at that interview for yourself, Drink Champs, Busta Rhymes, I think it was like a week ago or a month ago he did the interview or whatever, right? But it's at the 58-minute mark. You could check it out in the context for yourself. So it's that. It's like where I'm from, the neighborhood, and to be super full disclosure, I grew up in the same neighborhood as Busta Rhymes. I went to the same high school he did, right? So this is someone who understands the environment where I'm from, who is speaking from the environment that I grew up in, that, you just don't be running around taking pictures, sticking the camera in your face everywhere you go. I'm not that. I'm the type of person, if I'm right here and I'm going to post something, if I do, like, I don't even like social media. Only reason I have the Twitter is for the podcast, right? So, but, if that was my world, I won't post the picture when I'm right there. If I go on vacation, I'm not posting it when I'm out the country. I'm posting it when I'm coming back from the airport from where I was, right? And in that interview, he said so much that the fact that our world has turned into this thing where people feel like I got to share my entire life with you, right? And not me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about celebrities, right? That's where he was going with it. But that's my thing. I texted my homie and I said, I got picture PTSD, right? Like, that's really what it is, that you just don't, like, you're not from it, right? And I get it. I don't like the word, but I'm going to use it. These little squares that run around, they're not from nothing. The biggest beef they had is somebody said something on the internet. Like, I get it. That's their world and they're cool with it. And then I don't know how to take disrespect. Like, I wasn't taught, like, how to be disrespected, right? Like, I'm from where if you were disrespected, like you disrespect somebody is going to hurt you. But that's not where I'm trying to go with all of this, right? I'm just saying you are, what's that Jay-Z line? You was who you are before you got here, right? And that's just it. Like, your experiences, I don't care where you're from. Your experiences make you who you are. And that's the reason I can't jump. Because I hear a lot, and just be like, people be saying stuff to people online. And I'm just like, like, what give you the authority because you pay a cable bill that gives you Wi-Fi, or you pay a cell phone bill that gives you data? You feel like you could just be disrespectful because you pay for data? Like, I just don't get that shit. You know what I mean? But I don't want to be preachy. I didn't mean to come off all thugger at the beginning of the episode. I'm thinking about deleting this whole thing right here. But now I'm going to keep it, you know what I mean? Because we're gonna talk about some stuff, right? And like I said, I get it. I know they won. You see the title of the episode, We Saved Us, because we did. Black people, Latinos, and Native Americans. We'll talk about all of that. But I want to talk about a couple of things. What's the couple? So look, I saw this article over at NBCWashington.com. I know I'm going to get into it, though. Give me a minute. I am going to get into all that good stuff. An article over at NBCWashington.com. It said museums face calls to better represent people of color, and it caught my eye, and I was like, wow, like, like we're having this conversation, this racial reckoning that that America's having. Black people already knew about it, and I read the article, and it's like, among 18 major U.S. museums, 85% of artists featured are white, while 87% are men. That means 8 out of 10 art that you see in the museums is a white man. Like, for all intents and purposes, just to break it down. And it's important that you see yourself. And I just thought about, like, how everything we do is just focused on, some other culture. And meanwhile, other cultures steal the black culture and make it their own, right? And when I saw that, I'm like, if you're going to a place to learn, right? Like, that's what we go to museums for. You don't go to museums like, I remember back in the day, growing up in Brooklyn and shit, we used to go to Grand Army Plaza Library, right? and you would go there just to hang with girls and stuff, hang with your school friends and type of shit. Like that's what you do when you're young. But when you become an adult, you go to museums, wherever you go to these places to learn. And imagine you're going to learn probably about yourself, right? And therefore, when you go to learn about yourself, you end up learning about another culture. And those, those things are important. And there's this organization, as I was reading the article, they were, they're trying to get push to get it that these museums change their leaderships, right? And one of the women, a curator, she is saying, I'm tongue-tied, a curatorial fellow at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Cleveland. She started an initiative called Museums Are Not Neutral. So basically she's saying, museums are like, oh, we're neutral. You can't be neutral if you're just showing white men, right? Like, so, and she's pushing this effort to get museum to change their leadership, right? Change their board of directors, change all of that so you can see yourself. You can see black people, you can see Latina, you can see Latinos, you can see Native Americans, right? And her name is Latanya Autry. And just, check the article out, or just think about when you go to a museum what you're seeing. And if you're not seeing yourself, you need to question it. I know I've been to the African American Civil War Museum. I believe that's like on U Street. Yeah, that's right. If you live in Washington D.C. or you're around the Washington D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, you take the subway to U Street, Cardozo, I think it is, and they actually say African American Civil War Museum. You come out. It's a small museum. You go places like that. There's the Prince George's County African American Museum and Cultural Center. There's the actual the large museum in D.C., the National Museum of African American History and Culture. You could go check those out and things like that where you can see yourself. And I just wanted to bring that to you. Something else cool, not cool, but I saw, like, back in August, I talked to you all about this, that I had testified before, what was it, Maryland Police Workforce Group, Maryland Police Reform Work Group. And what this is, it's a work group that was put together by Prince George's County government for, the entire state to, police reform. And those two words, police reform, Biggie laugh, ha, 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 ha. It's like at the beginning when he said, ha, 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 check out this bizarre rapping style used by me, right? So it made me think of that. So back in August, I did that. I shared what I said. And then I'm going through my emails. They buried this shit. They don't be wanting you to see this shit, right? So I'm going through one of my emails, and it's buried like in 10 things they had going on. And I see that there was going to have this another meeting on November 5th. So I was like, hold up, I'm going to sign up. I signed up and I testified. But before the meeting start, the interim chief, Prince George's County interim chief, he was talking. And as he's speaking, I'm sitting there, I'm listening to him. He talked for 45 minutes, right? Pretty much about nothing, right? Just going through hardcore data, real boring. He does not know his audience. His name is Hector Velez. He doesn't know his audience. He doesn't know how to read a room. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, you run the police department, dude. So anyway, I'm sitting back there. Another judge, he testified. It was moderated by Delegate Alonzo Washington. And, I'm just sitting there and I'm just peeping the scene. I'm just like, this feels pretty friendly. This doesn't feel like accountability. And I had a whole, when you signed up, they wanted you to say what you were going to say. And I think I had put in there like, whatever reform you come up with, make sure it protects black and brown people, right, from getting killed by the police, something to that effect or whatever, right? Some people be like, why you say police and not police, but police. So I thought I was going to say that, be all kind of nice. And then I listened to everybody. A couple people went before me. I think like 4 or 5 people went before me. And I said, you know what? this whole thing feels weird. I'll play it for you. Actually pulled it up. If you want, you could go to YouTube, type in Police Reform Work Group Meeting November 5th, 2020, or just go to Delegate Alonzo Washington Twitter page. I think he has it up there or whatever, right? So I'll play that audio for you, and you could go to the 1 hour, 57 and 28 second mark, and you could see it for yourself, listen for yourself. I didn't do the video, you know what I mean? Like I said, I just spoke. But as they were talking, they were trying to take from residents, what do you think of this police reform? Ha ha ha. Every time I said I do Biggie laugh. Ha ha ha. The police will never reform. You have to really think about defunding them because they've been trained to kill. Like when they go to the academy, you like to see it on TV, the Police Academy movie, they get the cat out the tree. It sounds good, but it's not, right? And it took me some time to get here. At first I was like, defund the police, that's a little strong of a word. And it let me know that, that I was afraid of words that would offend white people, right? Like, I may not have been thinking it, but when you hear stuff that protects black people, but you get a little shaky and a little nervous by the wording, or why are you more concerned about the wording versus what the outcome is if you follow what the words say, right? If you defund the police, you make black and brown communities safer. Simple and plain. Why complain about the words, right? It's like defund the police. Oh, I'm afraid. No, it's like you defund the police, you protect black and brown lives, right? So when Walter Wallace Jr. moms call call that he's having a mental episode, the police is not going to show up with guns, right? They're not. They're just going to show up with a mental health professional, take him for therapy, take him to a hospital, take him to a mental facility, get him the help he needs. He comes out a day or two later, problem solved. Nobody is shot. You don't have to do anything, right? So when it was my turn to talk, before I play it, I'll say this. When it was my turn to speak, I have this thing that I'm working on that, although I'm a complete people person, I will talk to a homeless dude. I will talk to a complete stranger, male or female. I just don't I'm just a social person. I've been that way my entire life. It doesn't change, right? But when it's time for me to speak publicly, I get tunnel vision. It's the weirdest thing. Like my heart rate goes up. I get tunnel vision. Like I can only see it directly in front of me. It's something that I'm working on. So if you hear my voice and it sounds a little lower, it's because that started happening to me. I spoke to someone about it, a professional public speaker, and she was like, yo, be in the moment. Like you're jumping out of your moment. Instead of leaving your moment, come to your moment. And not in those words, but that's how I broke it down in my head, right? So take a moment, take a deep breath, realize what you're about to do, focus, and, just so I'm going to work on that. So I just want to let you know, if it doesn't sound like me, that's why. So without further ado, that long-winded conversation, just to play this for you, me testifying for Maryland Police Reform Work Group meeting on November 5th. Here goes.
Troy Griffith.
Yo, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yo, this whole thing is weird, man. It's just the police is nothing but a legalized gang. I'll leave y'all with a quote from Malcolm X, and it's when the Nation of Islam told him that he couldn't speak anymore. This is one of the first things he said. He said, you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and you pull it out 6 inches. There's no progress. You pull it all the way out. That's not progress. Progress is healing the wound for the blow you made. I'm out.
So another thing, right, that when I speak up, sometimes I'm that guy that says something that everybody else is thinking. So when I speak up at times, I'm often like, did I go too hard? Did I go ether? You're listening to the only political podcast for the hip hop generation, right? So that energy comes from listening to hip hop, just being real, speaking truth, right? Speaking facts, right? So sometimes I'm like, did I have to go that hard? Did I have to say that? So mind you, that's on November 5th. I'm reading, as I do every Sunday, the Washington Post. And on Sunday, November 8th, I'm going through the Sunday Washington Post. So what do I see? This headline: Maryland's piecemeal approach to police reform doesn't work. I'm contractually obligated every time I say police reform, I got to do the Biggie laugh. Ha, 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 ha. Right? Ha, 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 ha. I said it twice. And the article is written by Keisha A. Brown. And she basically goes through to say the same thing I said, that it's I'll put words on her paper and say it's pretty much bullshit. What they're doing is not cool. And I'll read this part when she said, "Let it be clear, you are not a good officer if you stand by and watch your colleague harass, bully, assault, or do anything in violation of policy or law." That's it, right? And when I said the police ain't nothing but a legalized gang, this is true all the way from the Rampart scandal all the way to Baltimore City police officers. And you can check this up yourself. This is according to, can I find the article? Yeah, this is according to, once again, the Washington Post. This is an article from January 31st, 2018. It titles, "Their job was to take guns off Baltimore streets. They admitted stealing drugs and cash instead." I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 police officers, right? 6 of them. I'm just saying, they're a legalized gang, and I've told this story before. My boy, Starman, my mans, right? I'm like 13, 14 years old. I'm barely touching the streets yet, right? Like, I'm now coming to myself, hanging around on the corner and shit, like getting to know people in the neighborhood. Like, you know, you now becoming that teenager, and you're like, you know, just coming into your teenage years. He pulled me up. He was like, "Yo, little man." I'm like, "What up, Star?" He was like, "Yo, the police ain't nothing but a legalized gang." Never understood what he meant. And this was a dude that was in the streets, right? And I would hear stories from him like, "Yo, the police took me in their car and they punched me in my face and they threw me out." And I used to be like, "Yeah, whatever, man." "Yo, they roughed me up for no reason." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, man." But as I got older, I'm like, okay. And I think I told the story before, but one time my brother and shit, my brother that's before me, my older brother, and yo, I did my summer job or something, and I had got money and I got my paycheck, and I'm counting my money, and my brother's like, "Yo, I'm about to rob you, son." You know what I mean? And like, he hid behind the car, he jumped out like playing like he was gonna get me, and suddenly this guy jumped out, don't know who he was, jumped out of a car, ran up on my brother, and he was like, "Yo, put your hands up." And I was like, instinctively, I'm like, "Yo, what you doing?" And he was like, "Yo, the police." And I'm like, "All right, well, say that." Both of my brother and I, we like, "Yo, say that." So at that point, my brother smacked his hand away like, "Yo," because we don't know who you are. He's like, "Police," or whatever. He pushed my brother into the gate. And my brother, I was like, I said, "Yo, B, chill, son, chill. It's not even worth it. Like, they gonna totally twist this around. Leave it alone." But the point was, he didn't come out there and say, "Excuse me, gentlemen, what's going on? Is everything okay? Okay, cool. I thought something was going on here." No, he ran out, grabbed my brother, threw my brother against the gate, didn't identify himself. That's moving like a gang would move. That's not public safety. Public safety is making the people feel safe, that you are there to, what's that word? Protect and serve. You understand? So as I got older, it came to me. And, you know, at times you do this podcast, and when you're out in the streets and you're actually doing the work, you know, you don't want to get caught up in, yo, what if when I run for office, this gets played back? What if, you know, I couldn't care less about running for office. I care less about telling the truth and speaking to people who listen to me, black and brown people, you know, to keep them safe in them streets, whether it's politically or being civically engaged, right? Keep them safe in the streets and let them know what's going on. So it's not about worrying about down the road. It's about worrying the right now. And if this was come back to me, you know, don't plan on running for office, but if it's come back to me and I'm elected office and say, "You said to defund the police," damn right, to protect black and brown's lives, right? Walter Wallace Jr., Breonna Taylor, Ayanna Stanley Jones. Name me a 7-year-old white girl that got shot by the police while the police was running up in her crib. I'll wait. You know what I mean? Like Ayanna Stanley Jones, 7 years old, shot by the police, regardless of the circumstances, right? I don't care what happened. Why is a 7-year-old black girl being shot by the police? Look her up, Natasha McKenna, right? Why is she being shot? Why is a 90-something-year-old woman being shot by the police? You know what I mean? Like, think about those things. Like, are you more offended by the word, or are you more offended, or are you offended by the words, or are you for what the words will do? In other words, if defund the police offends you, then you know, and you're offended by what defunding the police will bring protection to black and brown lives, you got to pick. You can't have both, right? Do you want to protect black and brown lives? Well, that includes defunding the police, because they can't police reform. Ha 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 ha. They can't. They don't know how to, right? And speaking of defunding them, I'll show you this. There's this other article right here. It says, well, no, I wanted to. All right, yeah, I'll show you this. It's on the same spread that this Maryland police reform was. It was on the same thing. Here's another thing. You defund the police, you could use money for this. Domestic violence survivors say housing group betrayed them. They allege illegal eviction in pandemic program. What the fuck? Like, what? They allege illegal eviction in pandemic by program in Prince George's. See, look, like I can't, they wrote this poorly. Literally said they allege illegal eviction in pandemic by program. They wrote that wrong. It should have said they allege eviction in program during pandemic by Prince George's County. My bad, y'all had to listen to that 100 times, right? But basically what this is, it's an organization that houses women in transition programs. And the program said, yo, we're not landlords. We're just this transition. But here's the thing. I'll say this. If they had more money and more programs like this, and you're not giving all your money to police departments to harm black and brown people, they won't be facing that problem. You understand what I'm saying? And there'll be more resources to do stuff like this. Check this out. This other article. Kushner-owned firm files to evict scores of families as bans expired. Because remember, they couldn't evict people during the pandemic, right? And here's this young woman, Tashika Booker, at Owens runs apartment complex in Owens, Maryland, facing eviction because, you know, they're behind on their rent. These things are trash. Like, money can go, if you could give money to billionaires, you could defund the police and start giving it to black and brown communities over and over. It's the same thing, right? I was watching the History Channel, right? I'm gonna get into the election thing. Y'all bear with me. I was watching the History Channel, and because after I did the election or whatever, all right, so let's do this. I'll say this first. I was gonna say let me talk about the election, but I want to tell this story first. So after the election, I came home Wednesday morning. I'm lying down in the bed. I turn the TV on. I don't want to see anything news. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. Nothing. Wake up Wednesday morning, I turned the TV on. I switched to the History Channel just to have something playing. And as I'm watching it, they talk about this guy, Samuel Morse. And if you don't know the name, what he did will ring a bell for you. So Samuel Morse came up with the Morse code. And what the Morse code was, you know, like a communication thing, like it was the modern day version of a beeper or a cell phone or whatever. So, you know, quick story. He wanted to run a line from Baltimore all the way to Capitol Hill so people could communicate. So he did that. And members of Congress gave him $30,000. You can imagine in those times, $30,000 was a lot of money, right? So they gave him this money. It wasn't all that, you know, it was choppy. They ran it on the ground. The connection wasn't that great. So this is what, the late 19th century? So this money, right, it didn't work out in terms of, you know, with Samuel Morse, Joseph Henry, and Alfred Vail. It didn't work out. So because, as I said, the wires would run on the ground. And that's why today we have wires above ground, right? So they gave him that money to find out it was the wrong thing. And as I was sitting there and I was like, yo, the United States of America government has been giving white people money forever, right? But they've been projecting this entire time that black and brown people are welfare recipients when we know majority of the people on government assistance are white people because they're a larger group of population. But nonetheless, you understand? So I say that to say, I don't know why I said that, but I wanted to share that with you. I completely lost my train of thought. But this whole notion that, you know, that somehow black and brown people, Native Americans are the leech of the government It's not true, right? We saved us. We did it with the election. So let's jump into that. So how I found out about the election, I was running as I do on Saturday mornings. I'm doing my run. I get a text from a former coworker that says Joe Biden won. I text my coworker back. I said, yo, you need to have more than one source, because I've learned from the 2000 election, you just don't do that or whatever. When the media follow up with their research assistant and they project that or they predict that this is what's going to happen, you need to have two sources. So as I text that, I said, let me go to CNN, Twitter, go to it. They predict it. Go to CBS, they predict it. Go to NBC, they predict it. All right. And as I said, I'm running, and usually on Saturday mornings, 9 out of 10 times, there's some biker black men, majority of them black men. And I said to them, I don't know if y'all give a fuck, but Joe Biden just won. Right. So it was 3 guys, and the other 3 gentlemen passed, said the same thing. I don't know if y'all give a fuck, but Joe Biden just won. Right. So there's that. Ecstatic. Joe Biden has been elected as the next president of these United States, along with current Senator Kamala Harris will become Madam Vice President. You understand? First black woman, first person of Indian descent in the White House. Just imagine how our ancestors are feeling about her. You understand? So, can we back up a little bit? We know that happened. I want to share my experience with you. So I volunteered to work the polls, right? 16-hour day. Got out at 5 o'clock in the morning, set up, didn't leave until about 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. What's that? That's 12. Yeah, that's about a good 16 hours or whatever. So went ahead, did that. It was a great experience, right? If you love standing on your feet for 12, 13 hours, it's a great experience. And I say that sarcastically. Stood on my feet, I got to learn a lot. I got to see behind the scenes when you pull the curtains back, what goes on behind the scenes. And what I learned from training back in October, to go into 2 more trainings, what I've learned about the election process, it is one of the most secured integrity piece of institution in our government. I say one of the because there are many more protected with integrity and security institutions in our government. But of what I witnessed and my training and everything that went into securing people's vote is amazing. One of the things they said is everyone has the right to vote, but we'll tell you how you vote. And what they mean by that is this. You can either vote a provisional ballot, or if you already voted by mail and here you are coming in trying to use the machine, no, you can't vote twice, right? That's what they mean when they say they tell you how to vote, right? So to protect it, it has a protection system. And if you come in with your absentee ballot and you already filled it out, already signed everything, you could drop it off in the ballot box. That's a thing, right? Protected, completely protected. But I wanted to tell another story, but I couldn't because I said, I feel as though those people who showed up and voted, what I saw, I shouldn't be speaking on, right? I should treat it like jury duty. But I did see some funny things in terms because Donald Trump is trying to make it look like this election was fraud. I don't mean funny things like that. I mean funny thing with voters, right? The way voters would act. Like, I will sign the paper after they do it. Some of them would stop and look back at me like, what are you doing, right? Because it's that distrust he placed in the system to make people think that you're doing something nefarious when in fact you're just protecting their vote. If I'm signing my signature at the bottom of their paper to let it know this was received by me. Typical stuff. That's what I mean when I say I saw some funny things in terms of how voters were acting because he put out this information out there, right? But I'll say this, and there's a reason. Listen, even before the election, I said, if Joe Biden wins, I'm going to title this podcast episode after he wins. I'm going to title it "We Saved Us." The first tweet I'm going to send out from the podcast Twitter is going to be "We Saved Us" after I find that out. And I did that, right? But I want us to understand something as black people. we continuously save us. We didn't just save us today in November 2020. No, we didn't just do that. We've been doing it, right? We've been forcing governments to put legislation, right, in whatever it needs to be. We've been forcing our government to see us as an equal, right? These laws just don't end up on paper because these people who are, in office said, oh, you know what? I'm a good human being, so I'm going to go do this. No, black people have always done that, and they will continue to do it, right? But with that said, I want you to understand something. I was talking to this young woman, for all intents and purposes. She stood about 6 feet tall, all right? Real cool, real calm, real collected. And she was walking around the school I was in, so I bumped into her. And I was like, oh, you looking for something? She was like, nah. She was like, just taking a walk down memory lane. I was like, oh, you used to go to the school. It's a high school. She was like, yeah. She was like, it's been like 14 years. I was like, damn. So I said, damn, how long has it been? She said, 14 years. I got a whole 14-year-old right now. I was like, damn, that's what's up. I said, do your 14-year-old go here, right? Prince George's County, predominantly black county. And she said, nah. I will never have my daughter go here. And I'm thinking to myself, pretty much, okay, let me ask more. I said, why? I said, I'm not from here. I went to school in New York. Is the school bad? Is something wrong with this? She was like, yeah, it's bad. So I sent my child to Montgomery County. And I'm like, okay. So if you're not familiar with the state of Maryland, Prince George's County, predominantly black. Montgomery County is, it's a growing Latino county, but for all intents and purposes, majority white county, right? Yeah, majority white county. And also what a lot of people don't take away from Montgomery County is 3/4 of the public school children qualify for school lunch. That's what you heard that right. 3/4. 3/4 of the public school children qualify for school lunch. So, but what I took from that, and knowing a lot of parents, my age group, and, this aspire to whiteness, right? Like, if I get my kids closer to whiteness, they will be accepted, they will be smarter. And the transition I'm going to make with this and say is that mentality needs to change. And what that conversation should look like, if you're in anything that deals with government, you need to be the driving change. So if you feel like that school, that neighborhood, that library, whatever the government institution is, that you don't feel that's operating to your standards, it's on you to make it change. It's on you to build a coalition and make it change. You understand? The way we got Joe Biden was a coalition. Why? If you don't remember, I'll remind you. It was in February 2020. New Hampshire had voted in their primaries, their caucus. Iowa, they voted in their primary, their caucus, and they said Joe Biden was losing. When in fact, only white America in those states, white people in those majority white states, right, New Hampshire and Iowa, had voted, right? And I believe in Iowa, only 1% of the voting population shows up in their caucus. So you did not have a good metric of amount of people who were showing up to vote. And somehow, myself included, because I wanted Kamala Harris to be the nominee, somehow people counted Joe Biden out. I even have an episode on here where I'm saying Joe Biden cannot be the nominee, right? I have a right. I wanted Kamala Harris, right? So Jim Clyburn, who's a member of Congress from the great state of South Carolina, he got up there and he said, yo, I know Joe. We know Joe. And most of all, Joe knows us. And when he did that, I believe it was a week before the South Carolina primary, older black people in South Carolina said, Joe's our man. And as that happened in South Carolina, started moving on to state, people started dropping out. Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, she never should have been there to begin with. Cory Booker, everybody started dropping out as we got to primaries, right? But it was black, older people who said, Joe Biden will be it. Coalition formed. You understand? Now, when it came to get a vice president, it was about 100 black women who asked who demanded that Joe Biden choose a black VP, right? 100 black women showed up and said, yo, this is what we want, right? And this is what it better be. It better be a black woman, because the black women have been the bone of the Democratic Party, the spine of the Democratic Party, right? And there were open letters, people putting it out there. This is what I wanted. He picked a black woman. That black woman went around the country. She talked to other black women. She talked to other Latino women, and she made it happen. She built a coalition, right? Got it done. The election was delivered. So this didn't happen, as I said. This didn't happen by itself. Black women showed up for Kamala Harris. Black people showed up for Kamala Harris, right? Senator Kamala, you know Joe Biden, so I'm not gonna, he was the VP for 8 years. You know him. So let's go through Kamala Harris. She's senator, the only black woman senator from the state of California, right? So in all 100 senators, she's the only black woman. Kamala Harris. She was elected, I believe, in 2007, if I'm not mistaken, right? And now that she's been selected as the VP, her seat will be open. The governor of California will, appoint the next person, right? So Kamala Harris went to Howard University. I know they're happy. Went to that university. That university is super happy. You can't tell them nothing. Excuse me. She got into the office 2017. I said 2007. 2017. You can't tell Howard University alums anything. Their head is blowing up. You have she's the AKA, right? That's her sorority. They're as happy as well. You understand? But these things didn't happen. These things didn't happen by itself. It took everybody to come together to do this. And we showed up like we supposed to do. We showed up. We saved us. I'll say it continuously. We saved us. Don't let nobody tell you any different, right? So after I found out they won, I did my run. I came home. I went about my day, ate breakfast. I went down to the White House. But let me back up just 1 second. As I was at the polls, one of my former coworkers texted me and was like, yo, you going to the White House? I said, for what? This was on election day, to celebrate. And I said, celebrate what? I texted her back. I said, celebrate what? Oh, Trump losing. And I was like, yo, there's nothing to celebrate. Babies are in cages. And she felt like I was being too stuck up. And I was like, yo, I don't just talk about this. This is a lifestyle for me, right? I've chosen to engage in this thing they call democracy, right? Whereas, I'm going to show up to vote. I'm going to, go register people to vote. I'm going to get out in my community. I'm going to, be a part of organizations, not on their board, not anything, because I'm a one-man army. ASON, never been taken down. Brooklyn Zoo. I'm just saying. Right. So this is a lifestyle for me. So I'm not about to go outside the White House and celebrate nothing. I'm happy, at that time I'm thinking I'm happy if Joe Biden wins, but it's not a celebration. Right. So Tuesday I come home Tuesday night, don't want to hear anything, don't want to watch the news. Wednesday, don't want to watch the news. Thursday, don't want to watch the news. Friday, Saturday, nothing. Get the news. All right, cool. I go down to the White House. There's a party out there. I go outside the White House. Now you're saying to yourself, I thought you said you didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to celebrate. I went there solo, dolo. Like what Method Man said in that movie Belly, I roll dolo from state to state, yo, right? So I go out there, I go outside the White House. There's a party on Black Lives Matter. If you go to the Twitter for POMM podcast, you'll see, go scroll through, you'll see all the videos that I captured. So I go out there, I take it in, I'm happy. I'm just taking in what's going on, right? So I go out there And I'm like, wow, yo, this thing is amazing, right? See all the black people out there, the black love. Guess what, y'all? A bunch of black people, no violence, no nothing, nobody, people bumping into each other. Guess what we saying? Oh, pardon me. I never apologized so much in my life. I never had people apologize to me so much in my life. So I go down there. I'm like, wow, this is awesome, right? But guess what? I come back home. I'm like, all right, the work begins. And I'm watching the news now, and within 30 minutes after I come home and watching the news, I'm like, I'm exhausted mentally. Why am I exhausted mentally? Wait, excuse me. Let me go back real quick. Like 5 blocks away from the White House, you couldn't get near to it. It was so many people. They blocked it off. People were blowing their horns up and down the street, everything. It was just people were just happy. White supremacy failed. You understand? So I come home, I'm watching the news, like 30 minutes, hour in, I'm exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted. Why am I mentally exhausted? Because it was nothing but white people on there talking again. And I'm like, what the fuck, right? Like, black people did this. Latino people did this. Native American people did this. How did black people do this? Georgia is tight right now because of black people in Atlanta. That's a close race. They're going to have a recount. And there's a runoff. I'll talk about that before we get off. I'll remind you. There's a runoff in Georgia. John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock, they have a runoff in January. If you're in Georgia, I guess I'll talk about it now. Call your family members, call your neighbors, call your foes, call your exes and tell them, yo, there's a runoff in Georgia Senate. Everybody who voted in November could vote again, right? Because it's a runoff, right? Same amount of people could show up and vote again. So, and I'm listening and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, don't you have any black people that could come on here and talk? You know, black people that you've never talked to before. Why the same white people telling the stuff? And you're probably like this. Oh, Troy, you're being racist or prejudiced. No, because they bring a perspective that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I'll give you a case in point. Joe Scarborough, who before Donald Trump, he's the host of MSNBC Morning Joe. Before Donald Trump became president, he had him on his show attacking then President Obama about his citizenship, talking about school, talking about he's a failure. At that point, he's just a regular Joe Blow. He's not a commentator, nothing. He's not a contributor, nothing. He would just call in the show to troll Barack Obama, then President Barack Obama, right? And Joe Scarborough gets up there and says this. I'll play it for you. He says this.
There are a group of voters out there that do not trust the Washington establishment for good reason. They do not trust the Democratic Party. They do not trust the news media. And Donald Trump was a person that, for them, fought back against all of these people who they believed looked down on them.
That's a complete fucking lie. They voted for Donald Trump because of racism. They didn't trust the media. They didn't trust the institution. It was racism. He couldn't say it. I don't expect him to say it. He's from Florida. He's out of touch. He can't help himself, right? So 70 million people this time voted for racism. 62 million people last time voted for racism. That's it. That's all, right? Joe Biden got 74 million votes, the most of any person ever elected for president. That's right, the most. And there's this narrative going around. Oh, what about the 70 million people that voted for Donald Trump? What about them? We just can't leave them out. They voted for racism. And at no point did I hear in 2016 anybody say, I didn't hear no one say back in 2016, 72 million people voted against Donald Trump. Where was what about the 72 million people, right? And how did I get 72 million? It's the 60 plus million that voted for Hillary Clinton, plus those who voted for Jill Stein, Gary Johnson, right? And I think Evan McMullin was on there as well, right? Plus those people. What about that? But when you hear it this time, you know what it's about? It's about what about white people, right? And my Dominican childhood friend, she said to me, she said, stop saying white people because you make it sound like it's everyone. No. She said, start saying racist white people. That way you separate everybody. Okay, it's racist white people and some black men, as I will talk about later on, that voted for Donald Trump. Right? And they're saying to you, please reconcile with them. You have to play with them now. So you want us to play with the same people that stood by and watched evil take place? Watching babies get kidnapped from their parents at the border? Watching, the concentration camps, as Alexandria Ocasio called it? Right? That kids are dying there? This is a man that said white power. This is a man that said he's a he's a nationalist. The white part is just, it's a given, right? This is a man that told a white, nationalist organization to stand by all of this. This is a man that did not condemn white supremacy, and you're supposed to look to his supporters to help you now. But remember at the beginning, because I tie all of this together. Remember at the beginning when I told you that I lived in the same neighborhood as Busta Rhymes, grew up in the same neighborhood. I went to the same high school that he did. That high school he went to was Samuel J. Tilden. What does that have to do with anything? I'm glad you asked. Now, it was right after Reconstruction. There was an election. Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden, went to the school, didn't even know it, right? Because the election was contested, they had an agreement, and Congress had one with them, that they will pull the troops out of the South that were doing what? Protecting newly freed black people. Said, we're not going to protect them. What happened afterwards? Using my Dominican childhood friend's term, racist white people went in, stole their land, killed them, all that good stuff, raped the women, all that. Well, when I say all that good stuff, I don't mean all that good stuff like that was a good thing. It was a bad thing, just a figure of speech, right? Sorry, bad choice of words. All that happened. So when I hear the term, right, because, PBS did this Reconstruction documentary. When I hear the term, we need to reconcile with people. We need to give the people who applauded our oppression a chance. I hear more of harm against black, Latinos, and Native Americans. But I keep saying Native Americans, Troy. What does that have to do with it? Come to find out, Native Americans in Arizona registered a large amount of people, over 70,000. I believe the number is over 70,000 Native Americans registered to vote in Arizona. And it was the difference in winning Arizona for Joe Biden. The difference. That's why he has the lead, right? That's the difference in the lead. So why work with people who was applauding your oppression? Why work with those 60 plus million people, which, by the way, in 2016, his number was 62 million. So that means about 7 or 8 more million people voted for this again, voted for racism, applauded the oppression of black, Latino, and Native Americans, smiled when it happened. Now, did Native Americans vote for Trump? Yeah, because even during any type of enslavement of any amount of people, there are always a group of people who don't understand their freedom is more important than anything, right? So did black men show up and vote for Donald Trump? Yeah, they did. Juan Williams over at thehill.com, he wrote, too many men of color got conned by Trump. Juan Williams, pre-Trump, he was with the Republican situation. Now he wants to, he's talking about rap music and all that good shit. But I'll take what, in this article, I was listening to this radio show when Maxine Waters said it, what she said, we can never, ever forgive them. It is shameful. They are so into who's dressing up, who's with that woman, who's got what card. They have a high price to pay for years to come, right? I'll go with this, where she was talking about the rappers who sided with Donald Trump, right? And, you know, it just, people that knock rap lyrics, to me, I'm like, what about porn? Whatever. What about magazines that have women spread on it? Like, you get mad at rap for their misogyny, get mad at everything, right? But I'm not there yet with hip hop music. Maybe I'll get there someday. Who knows? Anyway, right? Black men shut up. And now, full disclosure, my dad is a Trump supporter, right? It's weird. I don't think he understands why he's a Trump supporter, because he can't tell me up to now why he supports him. He can't tell me like what policies or so that's just how it go, because a key ingredient, I've said this to you before, a key ingredient of white supremacy is patriarchy, right? Simple and plain, right? So what you have is people who are, you know, who sided, like Joe Scarborough is a Republican. He's been down with the Republican Party forever. It's just Donald Trump is a different flavor. And this group, the Lincoln Project, right? They were going out there saying they're going to try to flip Republicans. They're trash, because majority of the people that were part of the Lincoln Project were part of the Bush administration, both Bushes, were part of, Nixon administration. I could keep going. Reagan. I could keep going, right? The difference with Donald Trump, he said the racist shit out loud, and they weren't used to that. They're like, oh, no, you can't say racist shit out loud. You don't know. You say it quietly in the policies that you pass. Never respected them, never will. And we should never forgive the people who did this shit, right? Who voted for Donald Trump. And there was a time when people were like, oh, remember? They were like, oh, a porn star was going to take him down. Then it was, his ties to Russia. Then it was, his call to the Ukrainian president, we're going to impeach him. And there you go. Which, by the way, the first president to run who was impeached, and he failed. The American people rejected him. You understand? So here we are now. We're happy. There's no need to celebrate the hard work start. Start holding your elected officials accountable. People you voted for down ballot, hold them accountable. You don't like what's going on? Call them. Get to know your elected officials, right? If you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, add them. That's all. It's not that hard. Just add them. Add them to your feed. That way you can see it. And I promise you, one thing will pop up that you like. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, add them. Add them to your profile. That's all you got to do. How you find out who they are, go to whoismyrepresentative.com. Whoismyrepresentative.com. And the fight is not over, because we have more elections, right? Starting with in Georgia. It's a runoff. Ralph Warnock ran against Kelly Loeffler. She never was elected to office. She was appointed. You have John Ossoff. He's running against Doug Collins. Excuse me. John Ossoff is running against David Perdue, which once again, he got elected and he just sat by, hasn't done anything. And John Ossoff is going after him like, yo, you did insider trading, right? So it's time to show up. If you know anyone in Georgia, family, friend, old classmates, old coworkers, whatever the case, give them a call. Say, yo, do you know there's a runoff in January and you can still go vote? Preferably get them closer to January, because if you call them now, they're going to forget. And if they're on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter feed, just plug it a little like, yo, election January 5th in Georgia. You understand? And after that, there's more elections. We got 2021. We got 2022, which is an on-year election, which means the Senate is up again. Right now, the Senate is tied 48-48. They're waiting for those two elections to see who controlled the Senate. You understand? So there are more elections, and we need to stay on this. And we need to remember the people who were instrumental in bringing this to us. You understand? I was walking, as I said, when I went down to the White House, I was walking back, and I saw Ron Brown Way. And I was like, wow. For those of you who don't know Ron Brown, very, very influential person who played a part in Bill Clinton getting elected. And I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, here I am years later. I remember when he was killed in that in that plane crash. And here I am years later, I'm walking and I looked up and I was like, wow, right? He was the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. He was chair of the Democratic National Committee, a black man. And, played a major role in the reason that Bill Clinton was elected. So let's remember the people who are, the people who paved this way for us. And here's the thing: sometimes we're not going to see these things happen overnight, right? A lot of the people who were enslaved, a lot of people fought for civil rights before the 1960s because it was only one civil rights passed. There were multiple civil rights acts passed. Some of them didn't get to see the fruit of their labor, as they said. And, I remember Barack Obama always used to say, better is good. As long as you're able to make things better, don't let great be the defeat. Don't, man, we didn't make it great. As long as you made it better. And that's the goal. We have to improve it each time, right? And there's other stuff I want to talk about real quick. And you have like a young guard coming up in the Democratic Party that's not here for the shenanigans anymore, right? It's not here for the yesterdays. They're not here for how we used to be. They're not going to hold on to anything. They're not playing that game. You have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who's like, yo, you know what I mean? We need to step our game up, right? She said in the interview with Jake Tapper, like, yo, you got to step your digital game up, right? You have to stop looking at, the progressive part of the Democratic Party as your enemies. That's not the case. You have a new guard coming up now, and they're saying, yo, we don't want to do things this way. We don't like what you're doing. Alexandria Ocasio came out, earlier today, and she was like, yo, I've put the Democratic Party on notice that Rahm Emanuel cannot be a part of Joe Biden's administration. Right? And you're probably like, who's Rahm Emanuel? He was the mayor who covered up the fact that Laquan McDonald was shot and killed, but he covered it up. He hid the tape. You understand? So she's putting them on notice. We're not doing the Wall Street people anymore. We're not doing any of that. It's a different day. And I think people who are paying attention, they ain't having it. They ain't about the shenanigans. You understand? So it's not over. There's many more elections, and we have to be just as engaged as we were when Donald Trump is office. Look, I started this in February 2016. I didn't know Donald Trump was going to become president, right? I didn't know. That wasn't my plan. I was like, man, I'm going to come on here, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk about politics for the hip-hop generation. I'm just going to break it down for them, let them know, that this political thing, don't be scared of it, get into it, right? And here it is. You understand? But the Democratic Party, I hope they know they're on notice. And I think they know that. You know why I know? Because of what Joe Biden said at his victory speech. And because of what Kamala Harris said at her victory speech, right? And I'll play this for you. Here's Joe Biden recognizing where his win came from. And I add Black, Latinos, and Native Americans. Check this out. Here it goes.
And especially those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb. The African-American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours.
I had to turn that down a little. If the volume was low, excuse it, because it was loud because of all the yelling and the car blowing. But what Joe Biden was saying, that the black people had his back, and he will remember. And this time is different. We're going to hold them accountable. And also, I wouldn't be, admirer of the great senator from California, Kamala Harris, if I didn't play her speech as well. Here she is.
And about the generations of women, Black women, Asian, white, Latina, Native American women, who throughout our nation's history have paved the way for this moment tonight. Women who fought and sacrificed so much for equality and liberty and justice for all, including the Black women who are too often overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy. All the women who have worked to secure and protect the right to vote for over a century, 100 years ago with the 19th Amendment.
I just want to interject real quick here and say, ironically, the 19th Amendment, when it was passed, it was only for white women. But how ironic it is 100 years later, when black women were excluded from the 19th Amendment, that a black woman is currently the VP of the United States. If that ain't talking about ha 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 ha. Anyway, back to that.
55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
And I let all that played out because it was important what she said. Although I am not the first, I will not be the last. And you have to see the way she looked into the camera as to say, I will assure that I'm not the last. And here's how she can, here's how she will do it. Remember I said, she's currently, at this moment, even though she was elected as the VP to Joe Biden's presidency, at this current moment, she is now the senator from the great state of California. One of the senators are from California. You understand? So now that she's been elected as the vice president, her seat is now replaced, will now be replaced. And how that seat gets replaced is, how that gets replaced is that the governor will appoint someone. You understand? And there are a host of people the governor can appoint. He can appoint anyone he wants, right? So it's Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein, which is, her time is overdue. It's long overdue. She's way out of touch. That lady is way out of touch. Anytime you can scream at little girls who are trying to get engaged in politics and you think that shit is cute, she screamed at like 11-year-old, 12-year-olds, right? Because they were pushing for, at the part of the Sunrise Movement, they were pushing for clean energy. She screamed at them. It was like, I'm older than you. Clearly, they could see that lady. But anyway, Kamala Harris' seat is open. And Gavin Newsom, he can appoint someone. And all the people who can appoint is very qualified. I can go through the list, right? One of my new favorite people, I have to say, is Mayor London Breed. When the coronavirus hit, the work that she did, the work that she worked with her community to get it on the wraps and do what was needed to be done and wasn't listening to anyone. She was on top of it. I see people like that. One of the women that was in the run for, they said it was in the run for VP was Karen Bass, right? Maxine Waters could get thrown in there, right? A host of people can get thrown there. But here's the key. A black woman needs to be in there. Why? Because if a black woman isn't in Kamala Harris' seat, it now becomes no black woman will be in the U.S. Senate, right? Kara Mosley Braun was before Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Kara Mosley Braun, and now if they don't appoint, which they will, trust me, they will. They know the heat that's coming their way. If they don't appoint her, if they don't appoint a black woman, that seat will go empty. So that's the next fight. Remember what I said. Elections happen every single year. So whoever gets put into that seat will only be in there for Kamala Harris' 6-year term. So she got appointed in 2017. 3, that's 2020. 3 more is 2023. So that person will be in there for 3 years, possibly 2 by the time they take their seat in January. So keep your eye on that. Remember, reach out to your loved ones, your family members, your friends, your cool foes, if it's safe to do so, and remind them that there's a seat. But I want you to take away from this episode, we saved us. And when I say us, I don't mean the United States. No, we saved us. Black people went to that poll and they voted for their protection. Latinos went to that poll and voted for their protection. Native Americans went to that poll and voted for their protection. Now, within that, did some black people vote for Donald Trump? Of course. There's always some, right? Did Latinos vote for Donald Trump? Of course. Because you have Cubans, which I'm not going to pretend to understand, that they're still arguing about or still offended by Democrats for the fact that the Democratic Party with JFK and Fidel Castro 60 years later. About 60 years later. But the truth is, their goal is to get to close as whiteness as possible. Remember, I told you that story with the black woman who said that she's putting her child in Montgomery County schools because Prince George's County schools were bad, when in fact, I would argue it's you giving up on democracy and saying, I'm going to be the change that living in a place, giving my child a better education, right? So Cubans have this thing, and Venezuelans who show up as white, they have this thing that, as Paul Mooney said, the complexion for the protection. The minute they look white, they're going with that. It doesn't matter if they have an accent. To them in their mind is, I'm not one of them. As my Dominican childhood friend told me, when Donald Trump said Mexican are sending rapists, she said, Troy, it's about the fact that they're able to say, when he said Mexicans, he didn't say Cubans. So they could be like, oh, that's not me. I'm not Mexican. I'm Cuban. Oh, that's not me. I'm not Mexican. I'm Venezuelan. Oh, that's not me. I'm not Mexican. I'm from Peru. Oh, that's not me. I'm not Mexican. I'm from Costa Rica. Oh, that's not me. I'm not Mexican. I'm from Honduras, right? And even the ones who have the broken English, speak the foreign language, have the broken English, their skin is brown, they're still in their mind, oh, that's not me. But remember what I told y'all last episode. If you're not chasing freedom collectively, you can't chase freedom on your own. You can't free your people on your own. You have to do it collectively. So the story I told you about NSARS in Nigeria, right? We have to think about them as our black and brown sisters. When Kamala Harris and Joe Biden push policies that may affect, African countries, we have to say, whoa, 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 whoa. The way I'm reading this, I don't like what it's going to do to Uganda. I don't like what it's going to do to Rwanda. I don't like what it's going to do to Madagascar. I don't like what it's going to do to Ethiopia. Your policy is going to be detrimental to them. I don't like what it's going to do to communities that look like me, whether they're in the United States of America. You understand? Keep your eyes open. Not because Joe Biden became president and we have a black woman in the White House. We had a black man, now we got a white woman. We had a black man, now we got a black woman showing up to her victory speech in a white suit. That's what I meant to say, right? All looking all sharp. She's ready for that position. She's ready to work on day one. And I'm gonna tell you another thing. Joe Biden got the news that he won on Saturday. Saturday night, he was like, yo, I'm put together a task force for the coronavirus. Now that's motherfucking leadership. Hip hop generation, we out.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.